Welcome back to We Make Money Fun. I am your host and co-owner of Heritage Financial Strategies, Shanna Reed, and we are back today for part 2 with Gordon Stein. Gordon, I have big problems with budgeting. Not only myself, but my clients sometimes come to me with all of these issues. I think that for a lot of people, like the negative connotation goes back generations when it comes to budgeting. Maybe your grandparents used a yellow pad at the kitchen table and they witnessed these conversations about not having enough or what to do with it. And then that's carried forward generations to now we've got spreadsheets and apps. And I get the question all the time, what's the best app to use for budgeting? And that's a loaded question because budgeting means different things to different people. And it's just so hard sometimes, especially when you're married, to get both spouses on the same vision. How can you help?
Well, I think there's a way of budgeting without budgeting because I've not yet met. I mean, maybe there's a few keeners, quants who get a big kick out of budgeting, but for most of us, we don't want to budget. And when we talk about it in the sense where we've got, a married couple or we've got partners, it's a recipe for disaster to start the budgeting. So I think the first step to make it a whole lot easier, rather than view it as a big pot that we're budgeting, and into it goes our dinners out, our groceries, our gas bill, our clothing shopping, all of this stuff. It's confusing. It's too many numbers. It's too hard to control, and we're making it difficult. So step one, in my mind, what I like people to do is we set up a separate checking account called a billing account. So typically you can get a free checking account from your financial institution. So let's just ask for a second one. We're going to divert our paycheck or our income into two accounts now. The first one's the billing account. So into that goes all of these standard recurring monthly bills: car insurance, home insurance, life insurance, cell phone bill, TV cable, all of our utilities, gas, electric, water, sewer. These things just come out every month, and typically they're exactly the same numbers every month, okay? And depending on your climate, in the warmer times, our air conditioning bill goes up, but our cooling bill goes, or our heating bill goes down, and it reverses, but we get about the same amount coming out every month. So that's what goes into there. Into our regular account, think of it as discretionary, variable kinds of things, our grocery spending, our clothing spend, etc.
Okay.
So the first thing we notice is the one over here, this billing account. We're going to take that and use all of our Cashflow Cookbook techniques to reduce each and every one of those bills. We're going to grind those bills down. And then what we're going to do is that freed up cash flow, we're going to invest it for our future. This is going to go into our Roth IRAs, our 401ks, our cash account. So what happened, first of all, it gives us focus on these monthly recurring bills, and they are boring things. So if I lower my electricity bill by $100 a month, my lifestyle changed? Not one bit. And I'm not emotionally attached to it. It's not like giving up my latte or giving up my muffin on the way to work or giving up my glass of Chardonnay at the end of the night. Those are more emotional. Let's go after these non-emotional bills. So that's our first step.
Okay.
Make sense?
That totally makes sense. So then we're only really spending using our debit card or credit card swiping, so to speak, on those expenses that are out of the second bucket.
Right. And all we have to do is make sure we don't run out of money in the end of the month. And you know what? Even if we mess it up, the gas bill's still going to get paid. The tax bill's going to get paid. All of these things are going to get paid, mortgages and all of these things out of that billing account. So our worst case is we're going to have to dig into our pantry to find food to make it through the end of the month. That's not horrible, okay?
Right.
But it also means there's far few numbers to look at. So if, as an individual, you're going to say, okay, what are my priorities? I need a new winter coat, or I need, a new tennis racket or something. And so that's going to go in there, and we're just going to manage our own money. And if it's a couple, all we have to do is once a month, we're going to say, hey, what are some priorities? Well, hey, we've got that trip to go see your in-laws, this week. So we got to set aside that. We got this much in groceries, and much, much easier to handle.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of step two.
I love that. That's awesome.
Once we've got that going, and now the next thing I think is important is we want to start tracking our net worth, because a lot of people track their budget every month. And the fallacy to me is you can make your budget every month, but then how much do you retire with? Well, we don't know. Are you actually getting anywhere? Are you building wealth? I don't know. I hit my budget every month. So this makes us a little bit less financially myopic. We're going to open our scale and we can say, let's say your total net worth is everything you own minus what you owe as a family or as an individual. So we got the value of our home and our vehicles and so on. And let's leave out things like furniture because it's impossible to get any money trying to sell your used clothing or furniture. So we're focusing on things of real value minus our debt, credit cards, HELOCs, mortgages, and what have you, whatever that number is. So for fun, let's say it's $763,000 is our net worth in, March of 2024. So let's have another peak again 3 months later. Did that number go up or did the number go down? In other words, do we take on more debt? What should happen is we're going to pay down those debts every month. So you go back and you dig out your new mortgage balance and your car loan balance. It takes a little bit of time. But then when you see it went from $763,000 to $784,000 or whatever the number is 3 months later, now you're saying, I'm actually getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And those changes that we made in grinding down bills, letting me free up more money to grow my Roth IRA, my 401k. Wow, this is working. Hey, we can now retire this year versus having to work all the way out to here. Or we can retire with this much money instead of only retiring with this much money.
Oh, I
Now
love
people
that.
are motivated. Now we're motivated. What else is there? So
Yeah.
now we're going to start looking at these discretionary things. Hey, I want to buy a new guitar. Well, if I get a used one, I could save $1,000. I can add that $1,000 to my Roth IRA because when we next look at our net worth, we're going to see it growing. So you're looking for clever ways of growing that cash flow for investment, giving up nothing.
Wow. So there's motivation to continue down the road once you start to see the positive progress that you're making from your shift in net worth.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
Ah,
So now I'm going to say, gosh, I've always stopped at Starbucks on the way to work to get a coffee, but that's $5.50. What's that worth over the course of a month? Well, that's if it's just one coffee a day, that's about $100 a month. What if I added $100 a month to my monthly contributions to my Roth IRA? That's $1,200 a year, but it's even more from the effects of compounding.
wow.
So if your limit as a senior person is $8,000, you just got 12% of your Roth IRA covered, making a simple change, and I'm going to make it in a thermos at home.
I love that.
Right?
That is awesome. So this question, what you're looking at doing here with separating things into two different buckets makes absolute sense, but it begs the question, you just mentioned Roth IRA contributions. Where do you put things like that? Do you put those in the first bucket with the bills or the second bucket with the variable expenses?
It's a monthly recurring thing.
Okay.
So as an example, we have a cottage, so I set aside, X dollars a month for bills that are going to occur at the cottage. So that contribution just goes in there every month, and then those bills come out because there's an electric bill and there's an internet bill, etc.
Yeah.
So I would put, if you have a Roth IRA contribution, it goes in there. Now the difference is obviously we're not going to try and crush down our Roth IRA contribution. We're actually going to grow it, but it should be, as it grows, if we go from, pulling out $200 a month to go into our Roth IRA every month, we're going to skinny up our electric bill by 100. It's going to go right away into our Roth IRA. Now they're going to want to consult with you. Is their best move increasing their 401k? Is it their Roth IRA?
Yep.
Is it paying down a mortgage, whatever? The important thing is let's give them the raw materials. Let's free up more cash flow so you can really start to accelerate their wealth.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And so, yeah, if they're not already maxing out their Roth, this might be one easy way to do it. We could also increase their 401k or workplace retirement plan contributions, because what I think people will notice over time is that maybe where they didn't have money left over at the end of the month and they were a little stressed about that, waiting for that last paycheck to come in. now they do have money left over, and we need to give that money a job so that it doesn't just disappear.
Well, that's it. And the whole thing is nobody ever has money left over at the end of the month. It doesn't matter if you're making $50,000 a year or $500,000, nobody has money. You have to get that money off the table so nobody sees it. So as soon as the gas bill drops by $100, whoosh, that has to get taken out automatically. Off it's going into their Roth IRA if that's the best. It could also be you want to increase contributions in a 529 plan
Yep.
for your children's education. So whatever their priorities are, that's between you, Shannon, and your clients, but let's give them the raw materials to work with. Let's do it in an easy way where we're not stressed out. We're not arguing about a budget. And so you see, there actually isn't a budget here.
Right.
Because, whatever those bills are in that bill account, we're just going to work and use Cashflow Cookbook ideas to shrink them down. I don't even have to look at them. The numbers you actually want to look at is what's your savings rate. So that's a number you want to know, and you want to know your net worth.
Okay.
And so as you look at yourself over the course of the year, there's only two numbers that we have to look at. Is our net worth growing? And is our savings rate, whatever the target you set with them, is it 10%, is it 15%? If they're only at 8%, are they increasing that savings rate?
I love that. So those are two goals that we can shoot for as we're starting to get organized into this method.
Right. So let's say somebody comes to you and, their savings rate is only 6%. So let's apply these ideas. Let's set up their budgeting, make all the math easy. We're going to use the ideas that we talked about in part 1 from Cashflow Cookbook. Every kind of bill can be lowered. So we're going to lower those bills, and immediately it's going to go into whatever's their best investment vehicle. And when we do that, their savings rate maybe goes from 6% to 8.5%. And then maybe they get a raise and they're going to take half of that and commit that as well. Now we'll go from 8.5% to a 10% savings rate, kind of getting there.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go reshop their cell phone service, free up another $80 a month, drive their savings rate to 11.25%. And so now we've got traction. We're seeing positive developments.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And those positive developments mean hundreds of thousands, if not, millions of dollars, depending on how young they are today at retirement, which is sort of what we're all shooting for. But I think a lot of people struggle with what retirement means and what saving all of this money might mean. We're going to get to hear you talk a little bit about that in October when you're in town with us, Gordon. We're going to be doing a luncheon event on Monday, October 14th, in Tucson, and that is on that subject. So can you tell us a little bit about what you plan to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about that one. A lot of my wealth advisor clients said, hey, lots of people struggling to get to their number, but a lot of us are starting to get a little bit of gray hair. And then you get to the point where you've made your number. And I joke around a little bit that the only thing tougher than getting to your number is getting to your number. Because then what do you do with your life? So someone, for most of us, our identity is so wrapped up in this career that we had. We were the vice president of this and that of this particular company. Well, now that goes away. And nobody's calling you. And there's no weekly status meetings. And, you're not working. Perhaps you had an assistant in your job. Well, that relationship, maybe you were together in that kind of relationship for 20 years. Well, that person's not around anymore. So it can be really disconcerting. The stat is that 28% of retirees end up depressed.
Oh.
Many of them stay in a job they dislike because they don't know what else to do with themselves.
Oh, wow.
So, meanwhile, a lot of us maybe look back on our lives and say, geez, I really regret that I didn't learn this. I regret that I didn't do that. Well, retirement is the great reset. Here's an opportunity to go tackle all of those dreams and all of those goals. So in the Meaning After Money, I go through a 9-point plan to think about key different aspects of your life. So when I interviewed retirees, I was really interested to find out what's working for them, those that are happy and successful and having just a fantastic time, and others really aren't, So just as one of the points in the 9-point plan. I call it Find Your Art. And I found a lot of people that are having a fantastic retirement, they have some kind of art that they're interested in. They're painting, or they're sculpting, or they're knitting, or they're doing needlework, or they've found an instrument that they want to play. And the idea really got buttressed because I'm on Zoom calls all the time, and probably 70% of the people will say something like, "Oh my goodness, look at those guitars. I've always wanted to play an instrument. You're so lucky you're musical." You know, I
Right.
say to them, I'm unencumbered by any kind of musical gifts, right? They kind of look at me and I'd say, what I'm telling you is if I can learn to play the guitar or whatever the instrument is, you can do it.
Yeah.
And it was really came home to me. I was on a Zoom call with a fantastic gentleman in the life insurance industry, and he's a huge rock and roll fan. And he said, "Oh, I love the guitars. It's been my lifelong dream to play the guitar." And he was probably 75 years old. And I
Wow.
said, "Well, why not? You still can. It's not too late."
No.
And he raised his hands up into the screen, and they were just kind of, distorted with arthritis. And he said, "Actually, it is too late."
Oh.
And I thought to myself, to go all those years and not go grab your dream.
Oh.
So retirement is a chance to go grab that dream. You can
Oh.
do any of these kinds of things that you want to do, and don't wait. This is
Yeah.
your window.
Oh.
So there's great joy in retirement, and I want to really share that with people in this talk.
Oh, I so am excited to hear this one
Mhm.
and have my clients hear it. And if any of you that are watching or listening to this want to come, we will link the invitation to this event, as well as the event that we're doing on Cashflow Cookbook and Gordon's method of budgeting in Gilbert that same evening. So come have lunch in Tucson, come have dinner in Gilbert, and you don't have to pay for either of them. So you can mark that savings right off your budget. But we would
I
love to
love it.
have you at both events. And Gordon, we're really looking forward to having you in Arizona.
It's just going to be fantastic. Can people have lunch with us and want to go see the other one at dinner if they're really ambitious? That's okay.
Yeah, and we'll be giving away copies of Cashflow Cookbook at those events as well. So if you want your own copy, please come and register. If you would like to buy a copy, I'll link the Amazon storefront where you can get those in the notes and in the comments as well. And come see us on the holiday Monday in October. And we'd love to have you at Heritage. If you would like more information for us and our firm, you can go to heritagefinancialaz.com and click schedule consultation. And we would love to chat with you that way as well. Gordon, it's been great having you, and look forward to seeing you in about a month and a half.